And welcome back, everybody, once again to the PCS. I am Pyrotechnics. Of course, he is Clement, and we've got 5 more games to play. But before we get into it, I'd like to take the moment to thank our sponsors. You can see them at the bottom of the screen. They are CTBC Bank, China Airlines, and Chunghwa Telecom. Clement, after that last matchup, very close until the very end, it seemed. Now we've got Alpha Esports taking on Boom. What do you think about this one?
I think we're going to have a very different dynamic to the past game. We had a back and forth struggle throughout the mid game and then a big explosion at the end. But for this one, I really think Boom Esports should be able to come out from start to finish and play a very strong, just dominating game. They are second place right now in the PCS. They should be able to deliver.
And their opposition currently sitting winless. You can see them on the screen right now. Alpha Esports, they are 3Z in the top side, K-Bait in the jungle, Xiaotu in the mid. On and Sheng will make up the bottom. And yeah, still hard to find what really defines this team. And, we know that they have some difficulties, of course. We talked already about the communication not being as viable because they're playing from different locations.
And we do have a small correction to make. Xiaotu, I think it was a GDC thing, which we accidentally read the wrong nationality, but he is connecting in with K-Bait from mainland China and not Singapore. So at least they're playing from 2 servers and not 3. So
that is an improvement to what we thought.
Yeah,
but yes,
that is a small boon. As we have said, the biggest problem is they don't have the comms to really play a teamfight oriented style. So it's mainly about individual skirmishes, mainly started by Xiaotu, which he did have a pretty good LeBlanc game earlier on, an 8-kill game. Xiaotu and K-Bait usually play a 2-man game while the rest of the team is scattered on the side lanes and just trying to push waves and try to wait for things to kind of develop elsewhere. So Alpha Esports, they do have that sort of gimmick going for them, but I don't think it's enough strength overall, and it's not a comprehensive composition to take them through games, and that's what we've seen so far.
Yeah, something will have to change if they want to try and pick up the win, but their opponents, very different story for Boom Esports with Rocky in the top, Alex starting on jungle tonight, Ruby in the mid lane, of course, Wako and Pop will round out that bottom side. Boom have been on a tear at the moment. You talked about second place. They're not holding it alone, but that is a heck of a line for them to have at the moment.
Boom Esports was our 5th place team in spring, so for them to move up the ladder like this, it's pretty good thing to see. And of course, their new jungle, they are switching between Holo and Alex. Holo did secure them a few wins during the streak. Alex, though, as we have said, has had more experience in the past. They are still switching back and forth. It's going to be very interesting to see who they decide to settle on as the main starter going into postseason. I usually think it's better for a team to have 1 jungle rather than 2 rotating in and out, but we'll see later on who actually gets the final call up.
Okay, we will take a look at our featured matchup for tonight. We'll be on in the bottom lane up against Wako, and a little bit of a difference in styles. Of course, On, a very recognizable name going back in the day. Wako has been showing up a little bit better, but it is also a function of the team. Remember, AD carries, bot laners in general, it's a little hard for them to have agency in this particular meta.
I feel like that's a really sad to see solo death being listed.
Yeah.
So what solo death means is you die with nobody around you. I think it's like 1400 distance, maybe the measuring.
Which, for a bot laner, like you have a support. That is sad.
Yeah, and it really isn't that much of an indictment on himself. I don't think On himself has been out of position, but just the way the team plays, everyone's trying to play for skirmish. A lot of times Sheng is going to be leaving him behind, so he is suffering the consequences based on that. On the other hand, both of these players have very, very high DPMs for their positions. You might think that, 520 DPM, is that really high considering an AD carry these days? And I want to tell you, yes, that's actually high for ADCs these days.
Again, the meta, it's a little rough if you're a bot laner at the moment.
Yeah, it's actually pretty rough. 702 for Wako is the best in the league, so he's dishing out the most damage overall per minute. And for Boom Esports, they do tend to trend a bit more into the late game. As we have said many times before, Ruby loves his mages. He did play a pretty good LeBlanc earlier on, but for the most part, they are a post 30-minute team.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they are going to start trending a little earlier going forward. You talked about LeBlanc. We were wondering, Ruby was one of those players where, similar to Moonblack, we thought, hey, maybe he's going to have a little bit of trouble adjusting to this meta where control mages, where sit back and farm is not going to be quite as viable in most cases. And we saw him bust out the Vlad a couple of times early to mixed success. Now we've seen a little bit more range. Maybe that changes a bit here. But all the same, Boom, they do seem to have found a formula that works for them. It's worth pointing out, though, that they've beaten mostly teams that have been in the bottom half of the standings. We'll see how that changes going forward. I mean, Alpha, definitely a team that's still hunting for their first win. So you have to think Boom have to be feeling pretty confident tonight.
And they should be able to extend their win streak to 4. If I had to judge on this one, I'd definitely say that this is an underdog battle for Alpha Esports walking into the ring here. And, going back to a little bit about the tempo things that we were talking about, Boom Esports currently has the longest game time out of any team in the league at 34 minutes and 6 seconds. So this is definitely one of those teams that likes to take their sweet time. They like to develop things like the Ezreal, like the Vladimir, like we've seen, or the Orianna for that instance. Ooh. So we should expect Boom Esports to be a little bit slower, but I honestly think the player difference should allow them to maybe get a dominating win, despite Alpha Esports' best effort at running a super fast 2-man game with K-Babe and Xiaotu right off the bat here.
Yeah, talk about fast. We were fast in picks and bans, and yeah, so they were going to lock a Lulu in as well on the Alpha side, and that is some pretty powerful pickups. The question is, how well can they actually execute on that? For the Boom side, we see the Gwen and Viego, who have been mainstays, getting locked in, and that always can be a little bit of flexibility. Pop will get the Leona lock in as we enter ban phase 2. Quick glance at what we've seen in the ban column for phase 1. A lot of jungle focus on the Boom side to deny K-Babe, but he does get Xin Zhao regardless.
And Xin Zhao, one of our highest win rate champions so far. Xin Zhao plus LeBlanc might be overtaking LeBlanc plus Lee Sin in the win columns for what is the best mid-jungle duo. The interesting thing here for me is also the Lulu. Oh, I think this Lulu probably is not going to be using that attack speed buff on. Most likely actually going to go towards Xin Zhao. You can also make use of it with the Wind Becomes Lightning as well. So we are going to see sort of our 3-man hit squad in the early game, and this is very powerful. You have lots of crowd control, lots of dueling potential. For Boom Esports, on the other hand, it definitely seems like there is more scaling elements to this. Gwen is a much more late game pop-off champion. Viego doesn't do that well pre-6 either. So it looks like Boom Esports are back to their normal state where they are going to take things a little bit slower and just try to weather the storm against Alpha Esports' aggressive start.
Yeah, Boom, it's a spot that they find themselves pretty comfortable with now. The question, of course, I think in any game with Boom is, what is Ruby going to play? Vlad has been removed. The LeBlanc matchup against Lissandra is not an option anymore. I mean, we did see the Rise before. Maybe Ruby's taking some pointers as Waka will get the Ezreal lock, and they're going to save mid lane for last. Unless they do something crazy like putting Viego there.
Yeah, there's a lot of different options here. It's definitely going to be an AP, judging by the Viego coming in here. And Ruby just doesn't play a lot of AD champions. I wouldn't be too upset with something like Karma. Has shove against the LeBlanc. You don't need to be a huge impact factor. You just need to make sure that mid lane doesn't collapse. You don't get snowballed on. So something like the Karma, I think, would be in the cards. You also have a bit of a poke orientation here already with the Ezreal.
Yeah, up against the Varus, though, that's going to be a pretty long-range piercing arrow that On's got locked in. He's been very comfortable on that champion, at the very least, so far in this split. And they will lock in the Rakan. I feel like this might be a top Lulu.
Yeah, it is going to be a top Lulu. So Alpha Esports trying to play the 3-man topside game. Very strong skirmishing core early on. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's the Silas. Okay. Yeah, the Aurelion Soul Hover was, a little interesting for sure.
I wouldn't mind seeing an Aurelion Soul, to be absolutely honest. Probably not going to have a great day versus Xin Zhao. With the Silas, at least it's pretty clear that you're just staying back for the early game and just holding on to your cards. So, Boom Esports, again, this is a very similar draft concept to what we've seen in the first game that Hong Kong Attitude brought out. It's just you just draft for the strongest carries post 30 minutes. You rely on enemy to make mistakes in the early game, allow yourself to get to that point where you just take over on raw stats alone.
Yeah, and I think it's a good strategy for Boom up against Alpha here. They have been comfortable at that later stage of the game. They got a lot of power picks they can be happy with. I certainly think Silas is not a bad pickup for the likes of Ruby here. I'm curious to see how well he pilots it. And there's a pretty scary team fight when they get into that later stages of the game. The thing that it really all hangs on, I think, is going to be that Lulu for me, because that does change a little bit of the calculus in some of these early skirmishes, Clement.
Yeah, it's a very good combo with Xin Zhao. We've been seeing a lot of Lulu mids with Xin Zhao paired up to just dominate early games and go for counter jungling. But against something like Gwen, I'm not sure it's that strong of a laning phase whatsoever. You have to go into the mist to even trade with Gwen. So this is kind of just an empty placeholder in the top lane. You don't really expect any laning success here. Of course, she can keep her distance, so she's not going to be that far off. A lot of it is still going to come down to just K-Babe and Xiaotu, whether they can find early kills onto this Silas. And Silas is a champion that's actually fairly easy to kill. He does have one gap closer, but just the first portion of that is very short range. He's much better at going forward rather than going backwards. And that's why I'm a little bit surprised by this Silas pick. I feel like it has to play very close to tower. You have to get constantly shoved in. And the other lanes from Boom Esports are going to have to shoulder most of the burden from that Roman LeBlanc.
And Xiaotu certainly playing for kills here. No teleport has the ignite this game.
Yeah, that brought a smirk to my face. Usually we do see LeBlancs these days still gonna go for the teleport. This is a very all-in build, and we expect that out of Alpha Esports. If you have only one condition on your team, you better all in that.
Yeah, they commit to it. I mean, I think that's something you can always give them credit for. And, Alpha, they haven't found success yet in this split, but there have been a few moments where they've shown some signs of life. I'm thinking back to, I believe it was the J-Team matchup last week, where they were holding some good fights up against what was clearly a superior opponent. And I think they're trusting to their ability to just be able to duke it out. Now, whether or not that's enough to win here is another story, but I like that they're committing to it.
They're finding a lot of picks into the mid to late game. I feel like Xiaotu is a pretty good pickup for them. Even though he's relatively inexperienced, there are a lot of just hidden gems coming out of the LPL and their minor leagues in the TGA and LDL. They just have way too much talent. So there are going to be a lot of players. And I was talking to the coach from the general manager in PSG, and he told me that a lot of players that find it difficult to actually find starting positions in the LPL itself actually are considering coming to the PCS because they can start count as native players coming in on the Hong Kong or Macau rosters, and the pay difference really isn't that much. If you are not a star in the LPL, you're not actually making that much more money than being a starter on the PCS. So that's actually very attractive, and I welcome that change. Anything that can up the competitiveness of the PCS is good in my eyes. So we could be seeing a lot more influx of maybe TGA or LDL players coming to the league.
Yeah, it's certainly a good thing for the region. And, with the more competition, it does mean that the level just starts going up overall. Taking a look at how this game has started, pretty much as you predicted, Clement. Trades on the top side going more or less in favor of Rocky, although he does find himself a little low backed under tower. Xiaotu, meanwhile, bullying Ruby in that mid lane. And it does seem like it's going to be a while before Alex could even provide a whole lot of help for him. So I hope Ruby is going to be able to play weak side mid lane.
The big question for me is, how does Xiaotu use these leads to get elsewhere on the map? He does have a lot of power with this Ignite going into it, and I do want to see Alpha Esports just completely zone out the top side. If they get to play a game that is centered around a vertical jungle trades, then I think it's a massive win for them. Varus is a champion that can clear decently well.
Ooh, Shung taking a lot of damage, so is On, as he opted into that with the Grand Entrance. A lot of early trading from both teams. Alpha are feeling really scrappy, and here comes Alex for a level 4 gank. They're just so low and juicy, I don't think he can resist. Nope, just a ward down. He's still waiting, though.
get a pretty good trade on Wako, but he is baiting on this one.
Yeah, they're going to try and tag out. He does tank a turret shot. Maybe just hoping to bully him out of lane and start working on tower plates. Alex isn't gone yet, though. They might set up for a dive in earnest here, and they do. Teleport forced out, and the flash follow here.
Get the first blood
for the Varus. On, what an outplay. They're not done yet.
First blood on the weak side.
Oh my goodness. 3Z here bullying the rest of them, and here comes Xiao2 looking for those plays, forces the flash out of one. Pop will drop, and it's 3Z that picks up that kill. What a start for Alpha.
There's so much that has gone wrong with this. My head hurts out of this play. You can see Wako even laughing this one off. This is not supposed to happen. So first off, I actually think that Alpha Esports is playing this lane wrong. They're on the weak side of the map, and they're trying to do vertical jungle swap. So they actually should not be trading very aggressively here. But, you know, it happens. It doesn't matter. And then the trade-in from Boom Esports. They bait a little bit too hard. They don't find the CC chain with Pop and Alex. And then they overforce their hand massively right there. Shunk does a great job at just catching Alex as he whiffs the stun coming into this one. This is absolute disaster for Boom Esports. This is their strong side on the map. This is where they should be finding 4v2s. They completely fail the 3v2 dive, and they give takedowns to Xiao2 and Lulu. The absolute worst case scenario they could possibly dream of.
Yeah, that was a little bit of an oopsie on the Boom Esports side. Alpha have to be feeling pretty elated. And I really loved the Shung and An combo there to really counterplay it out. They had time to set it up. Alex just kind of completely whiffs and flashes away, and it just felt like it was a line him up, knock him down moment. And we'll see how the game continues now with a little bit of a gold lead, what they can do. K-Babe wrapping around the side looking for Ruby. Even Shung's coming here. He's got a flash. He might need to use it, and there it goes, forcing it out.
That's the thing about the Silas. Once the game comes in, you really don't have escape tools to run away. And we are going to see Alpha Esports being able to leverage that mid lane pressure very, very well. You know, Ruby, they're like the worst case scenario, they get Ruby to force a TP out right here. But it does look like Boom Esports has their bottom lane much faster.
Ooh, Ruby hits 6 and immediately steals a quickness. Doesn't find a target, but they force Alpha to back away. Good countermeasure as they secure up vision and stop a dragon take potentially.
Really sweet play coming in from Ruby. You know, he stays in lane a little bit longer compared to Xiao2. Pops to level 6 and comes in back for the surround. But now Pop, he's got nowhere to go.
The action don't stop. Looking for more. He has no way to escape, and they're just going to let K-Babe secure up that kill. Meanwhile, on top, Rocky actually looking for a solo, but 3Z is able to save himself with Wild Growth. That will open up the opportunity here, though, for an Alpha Cloud Dragon, unless Alex has something to say about it.
Alex,
Teleport coming in.
Is spotted by the ward there.
Arrow Path looking for more. The collapse is there onto Alpha, but Wako just doesn't have the damage output. Instead, they settle for the Dragon. It's getting reset, however, but still a pretty effective leash there, and Alex should be able to finish that one off with a smite shortly. So Boom managed to make the best of a situation.
Yeah, Alpha Esports actually bit off a little bit more than they could chew there. The wave was pushing in, and crucially, Ruby does have the TP advantage, so he's able to come back into the fight topped off and just steal that one away. Overall, they haven't been able to put damage on Wako either, so unfortunately, you know, not really fast enough on that play. That was a two-man Drake take, took way too long, and Boom Esports were able to get to the spot with just Superior's pushing on the bot and mid lanes.
Yeah, Boom certainly recovering at least decently well from the mistakes of the early game. However, Alpha still rocking that gold lead. Let's see what they can do with it. You talk about teleport advantage in the mid. Of course, Ruby always has it, with Xiao2 going for this all-in Ignite build. But that does mean the threat is always going to be there. Chains on chains here in the mid lane.
The crazy thing about this game is that, honestly, if the kill distribution went towards Xiao2, the game's already over. Like, I actually feel like Boom Esports are somewhat lucky about this one. It was a really nice roam to catch out the Leona as well. You don't really see LeBlanc's leaving lane for that long of a duration and actually coming through the inner tri-brush. So really nice instincts for Xiao2. He knows his job on this team, and he knows how important and crucial he is for the success. He's pretty much the only win condition. Like, I would not be surprised if Boom Esports, sorry, not Boom Esports, but opponents of Alpha Esports just started banning LeBlanc. Like, if you blind that champion away, I'm not even sure what Alpha Esports goes to next.
Yeah, I think it's difficult with how few options Alpha have, but I do like that they're making this work right here, right now. The question is, will they be able to kind of roll that forward? They will go for this Herald play, and it's kind of hard to find an inroad. Oh, on with an aggressive flash forward. They will follow, looking for the damage onto Wako. They just do it with Shung. Pop was away, and Alpha would play. They got that one kill, but now Shung being chased around the side. You can see Alex incoming, looking to avenge his bot laner. On's got to run for it. I think Shung, no really way for him to get out of this one. Just going to try and buy some time as Alex will secure up a kill for himself.
Really good tick coming in Ruby. From Alex. Oh,
my goodness. Nice combination there. You do see Ruby taking a lot of damage, but he gets out in time. Doesn't have to burn the flash as he's stolen that LeBlanc ultimate. Boom, collapsing on bottom pretty effectively.
Alpha just trying to do too much on the map at the same time. They go for the bottom lane play while their 3-man has shown themselves on Herald already. And that just means that Ruby has a free rotation into the bot side. Ruby's pathing was also really nice. He knew that there was a ward in the inner try, so it goes completely around that for the tower gank right there. Well done on both sides, but you know, I think it's a pretty even trade, slightly in favor of Boom Esports, of course. And we'll see how this Herald can kind of equal out the equation so far.
Yeah, I think it does speak to that communication issues that, you know, we allude to a lot, that, yeah, you need to be able to play a little further back and not overextend yourself when the rest of your team has no way to get to you. And that's the type of thing that can be easily punished by a team of Boom's caliber. So as we get into this one, that gold lead starts to get shaved away a bit. Now, looking for the play, they will get a grand entrance onto Pop, but he's still pretty tanky. K-Babe wasn't really in position in time to do much about this unless they want to try for a dive, which seems a little ill-advised. A lot of pings flying through the river as Xiaotu's tracked by Ruby.
Definitely would not recommend this. I think this lane is actually going to continue winning just because of the Varus wave clear over Ezreal. Don't you just love Gwen as a champion?
Gwen is... I'm going to use the word fun.
She's special. She's special. Yeah, you can't trade with her as ranged against the Mist.
I think Xiaotu's looking for a kill here, Clement. Oh, he doesn't quite have it. Ignite burns away. And Ruby holds his flash throughout all of that.
Yeah, really nice play coming in from Xiaotu, who actually dodges out on the earlier abduct, allowing him to put a lot of just auto-attack damage onto Ruby. And I would prefer to see this Herald go mid. I feel like if you snowball Xiaotu, that is definitely the most bang for your buck. The bot lane, it's going to continue in this state regardless, and you're trying to play strong side top anyway. So I don't really see the value going bot side for K-Babe. This is the much better call. And indeed, with that force off against Ruby, they're going to get the entire thing.
That will be the first tower secured.
So much gold for Xiaotu.
Absolutely. K-Babe kind of marching the minions through here, and now it's going to force the rotate out of Pop if they wanted to commit a little further. Xiaotu waiting. They do want to feed this LeBlanc, and oh, they're going to run straight into Alex. Oh, forced to flash away, manages to dash from everything but the quickness. Going to catch on to Pop, teleport, the counter engage is here, and Alex starts by taking down Xiaotu out of nowhere. Rocky looking to cut the rest of the team down to size, and that was a counter engage if I've ever seen one. They lose Pop, but they really make Alpha pay for it.
Great bait coming in from Alex's side. He takes the entire team away. Love the early flash on that one. And then Pop turns around to accept the quickness onto himself. He knows that he has teammates coming in, and they just close off the blue ramp very, very well. That's going to also lead into the second break. So Alpha, they went a little bit too ham. I felt like once they didn't get the initial catch onto Alex, they could have backed out through the left side, decided to chase into Boom territory, and just got cut off for that one. So we'll watch this one again. You can see Alpha Esports, they are setting this one up. They popped the Pop Blossom already, but after this play, it's probably time to get out. You know, forcing this was a little bit too much. Xiaotu even walking directly into melee range to try to find the chain. And that wasn't the play, as Alex does have his fair share of damage at this point to just close out the kill.
Yeah, Alex starting to pick up 2 on that one really starts to look a little scary for Alpha at the moment. And that Viego just kind of did Viego things once the collapse came through. Good mechanics to really dodge out of all of the CC, and I do like the turnaround from Pop. And it just kind of shows that Boom are just a little bit more coordinated when it comes to making these plays, these hectic calls in the jungle. And as a result, you know, they've evened out in the kill score and managed to pick up another dragon off the back of it.
I feel at this point, Alpha Esports is doing a really nice lane allocation. We can tell from the previous trades that 3Z's Lulu is not standing up to Rocky's Gwen at this point, so they have to send Xiaotu to make sure that they still have the split push advantage. And even though they are playing a pick comp and not a 4-1 comp, split push is still incredibly important. You have to segment the enemy team away from each other in order to find those numbers advantages. So this is the correct lane allocation to do it. They're going to find another chance for the 2-man game to develop between K-Babe and Xiaotu, and to get him a lot of free objective gold.
Yeah, that's really what you can do when you're not able to get those big pick kills early on. Xiaotu still sitting there without a number in the kill column, but managing to knock down towers certainly helps. 15 minutes on the game clock, and Boom are only going to get 1 tower for themselves as Wako finishes down bottom. Map starts to open up a little bit more, and it does seem like Alpha are going to go hunting in this jungle of Boom. Alex throws down his Herald Path. And they do spot K-Babe just barely. Teleport. They want to fight this, I think.
Now, pretty interesting TP. They thought Alpha Esports was already on the Herald, so they want to contest that one. In comes Xiaotu and K-Babe.
Turning the credit. Oh, that's going to be a lot of damage dealt onto Ruby, but he turns around. How long can he stay alive? Not very, it turns out. And Alpha, a quick 1-2. And I think it will be time for that Herald.
A really weird sequencing from Boom Esports. They spend the teleport, walk forward, but both Gwen and Wako cannot be on the scene. Gwen is so far pushed under to her own tower, and Wako's clearing past the river on bot side, so I'm not sure what Boom Esports were trying to do right there. It just felt like they wanted to contest the Herald, but that was definitely a bit too much of a stretch. And Alpha Esports, K-Babe with a great punish. They have a very clear focus. They just want Ruby to die right there. They get their pick and the objective.
Yeah, it does seem like both teams have made plays that have overplayed their hand in this game so far, but Alpha, pendulum starts to swing back in their favor. Another Herald drops into K-Babe's pocket. And they've made good use of these so far, really helping Xiaotu get ahead. It's all about that jungle mid synergy. Here's that play again, very strange, and they knew there was a 5-stack here.
Yeah, so, excuse me, Wako was on the scene, but still, Gwen is nowhere near, and they take the 4v5 almost willingly, just venturing into this mid lane. Alex gets caught by the chains of corruption. He doesn't really contribute, no Heartbreakers coming out from him, and without Viego ultimate, down a member, that fight just went extremely poorly for Boom Esports. Definitely felt like they could have waited just a little longer, but they misjudged the time which Alpha Esports was on the Herald. I definitely think if you're reading Alpha Esports composition, you have to assume that they're setting up death rushes. This team doesn't even really care about the Herald that much. I feel like they're just using objectives for bait and catches.
Yeah, it is all about trying to secure the kills and end the game that way. K-Babe, I honestly really like the combination there between him and 3Z in that last fight. I mean, it is pretty obvious trying to use that wild growth to get him to be a big threat that's difficult to kill, but, you know, they executed it well, and that's something that Alpha have had trouble with. Not just this split, but just in general. So they don't quite secure that, oh, they do secure that second tier turret, excuse me, off the Rift Herald, and just continue to open this map up a little bit more, and looking for the Silas, not going to find it. Meanwhile, Shung runs face first to Alex, and the fight's happening on 2 fronts as Pop goes in, does land a Solar Flare onto On, he's forced to flash away. Meanwhile, Wako already out of there, and oh my goodness, Xiaotu finding some serious damage to delete Ruby off the face of the map, and Alex is running way back to base. They will finish the job as 3Z gets on the Glitter Lance. And Alpha Esports with a death ball coming up big.
Really good target focusing coming out from Alpha Esports. They see most of the ability used by Pop. They turn around and go for Ruby directly. They know he doesn't have the flash, so he is very vulnerable. and Xiaotu and K-Babe just pick him off at the start right there. Boom Esports also expended a lot trying to get On, and On was still able to contribute massively by getting that 4-man Chains of Corruption going. So we'll watch this once again, and I think my main focus of the fight is just to watch K-Babe on this one. They target focus quite well. They go directly onto the back line. Oh, I actually thought they were going on Ruby first. Ruby would have been the better target throughout all of that, but he still forces out Wako from the team fight pretty early on. A bit of a misplay right here, but 3Z definitely should have saved his wild growth for the frontline divers rather than On flashed out immediately. But still, you know, very clean fight overall coming from Alpha Esports. They keep all of their members alive, they dance really safely, and they pick off all of the critical targets that did not have their flashes because of the previous team fight.
Yeah, playing well around summoner timers, and On really making good use of his own summoners to escape from the catch situation, the heavy investment from Boom Esports. And it does seem like Alpha are just, they're very confident in what they want to do in this game. It has been about picks on some point, but they're happy to take these 5v5s or 5vx's in any particular point right now because they feel like they can win. And so far, they're right.
They definitely are, and I feel like Boom Esports are the ones that are a little bit lost on how to take these team fights. Ideally, what they want to do is get a first pick straight off the bat, just burst someone down, allow Heartbreaker to give you that crowd control and chain throughout the entire team fight. But the enemy team has a wild growth, and that's actually a very good deterrent for Viego to be popping off. I don't feel like Alex has had much of an impact at all whatsoever in these team fights.
Yeah, I mean, his kills really, 2 of them picking up in that turnaround that happened when Alpha went a little bit too deep into the bot side Boom jungle, and Xiaotu gonna get chased a little bit. Boom, heavy investment for them top side now, but Alpha are able to walk away from it relatively unscathed, and yeah, really like what Alpha Esports have been able to do in this particular game. Shung looking for some damage onto Popper, looking for some CC, I should say, doesn't quite find his opposite number.
And at this point, look how fed K-Pape is. He is unkillable. Steric's Cage plus the Gore Drinker. You can't even burst him right now. It's really disgusting to see this one in team fights. I don't think K-Babe, like, he can survive 10 plus seconds with the entire enemy team on him.
I think Ruby didn't realize that everyone was coming around for him. That was a nice clean pickup, and Xiaotu manages to get the kill.
Yeah, I'm so surprised he stood there. The rest of his team was already showing on the map, and that's not the right play you go for.
Diving more once again. K-Babe on that wild growth, just being a big old juggernaut Zen, forcing Boom Esports back. That is a good shutdown to turn around on 3Z. Good gold into Wako's pocket.
Okay. 3Z just randomly getting caught at the back end of that one. That was really close to being at least a 3+ kill team fight for Alpha Esports, but unfortunately, On was a little bit too short on his ultimate, unable to get the full stack, but still a pretty good play from Alpha Esports. They have now full control of the river. Boom Esports still has to face check, and Alpha Esports are just unrelenting. Look at that death rush again. This is the 2-man game we expect out of Alpha. They just run the same play over and over again.
Well, it keeps working too. That's the crazy part. Boom, not learning the lessons. Yeah, I love what Alpha's putting out this time. We'll see if they can take this one home and find their first win of the split. And up against Boom Esports, who've been kind of red hot lately, that would be an upset.
It definitely would be. Alpha Esports, it took them a very long time to get their first win in the last split, and most of them, I believe 4 wins, came off of the second round. In the first round, they only managed to beat Liap, so they were in very dire straits then. This time around, I think Shen and Xiaotu definitely providing a lot more firepower to the team on just getting caught out of nowhere here. A bit of a weird path to try and risk the river to get back to mid lane. They definitely could have played that a little bit safer there, and this is going to give Boom Esports a pretty nice target going into the next Drake fight.
Yeah, definitely not the greatest timing to lose your flash as an AD carry. A little bit of positional error. Ooh, Ruby taking a lot of chunk damage from Xiaotu. Looks to turn around.
Ruby,
I think he's just going to die.
Play.
Misplays it. The timing. He thought his teammates were there. Now Xiaotu still might die.
Oh, Xiaotu!
What a dodge.
He fakes them out.
Oh, that was brilliant, but will he get out?
He's still dead.
Ah, no, Wako finally finishes him off. The fight is still going, though, Clement, because Pop wants it to. And we're going to get a turnaround on the quickness. Pop, Wako able to get out of most of the damage. Pop is going to get saved by Alex here, and there is the tap back. They're not going to let them get onto this Drake for free, though. That's a root up onto Alex. The damage is there. The turn onto K-Babe, and he gets a big old knock-up, trying to find the finisher. Meanwhile, Rocky coming into the back. It is absolute chaos in this fight, but it's going to be Rocky's Gwen that gets the shutdown and more. And they're going to keep turning this one. Boom have found the fight they needed, and Alex is not done yet. Turns it onto 3Z for the finisher.
Alex gets a 4-time Heartbreaker. Make that 5 actually in this team fight. That was a little too risky from K-Babe going in up against the ramp. The corrupting Chains of Corruption were also slightly weird too. I felt like they were very opportunistic going in for the kill. And sure, K-Babe is very tanky, but he doesn't actually output lethal damage against Rocky and Alex at this point, and Boom Esports are going to swing this directly into a Baron. Once again, Xiaotu has to be the savior of the world.
He's certainly going to try, but it's going to be hard to go for the smite fight. Instead, he might just try for some pickups after the fact. Watches Boom Esports pick up the Baron and is unable to do anything about it. So, Boom back in the driver's seat after a huge turnaround fight for them off of some wonky plays on the Alpha side. I mean, that whole thing started with Xiaotu actually just bait and switching. But, hey, what can you do?
They trade the mid laner, but they also get extra with the with all the abilities right here. Ruby, he definitely tried to close that in way too much. He probably didn't factor in the Mimic Chains was still there, and Mimic Chains actually has the highest AP ratio out of any like single ability, not counting like Sigil of Malice right there. So miscalculates. Xiaotu still goes down, but this should be a winning situation for Alpha Esports since they got so much. Rocky is also not joining the fight. After this, once they get the flash from Pop, I think that's pretty much enough. You know, you turn back for Drake. They overstay their welcome on this one, and Wako just gets such a good opening to the fight. Even dodges out of the ultimate too. And this is where K-Babe, I think, really overplays his hand. Rocky comes in at the perfect moment, closes off the ramp with his miss. There's no way An can chase up onto this one. And 3Z is kind of a sitting duck afterwards. He has no damage against Alex, and it's kind of sad. He gets chased down by essentially his own AD carry.
Yeah. I mean, Viego is like the most disrespectful champion in the game. He will kill you with your own champion. But yeah, that was a really nice pop-off at the end there for Boom. Alpha just staying a little too long, as you mentioned, a little suboptimal usage of some of those ultimates. Now, Pop will get caught in a wave of CC, but it does not matter. K-Babe gets the kill, but they're still going to look for this turnaround here as he will fall to Rocky and the rest of Boom Esports. Needlework flying left and right. Ruby taking the kill onto 3Z, and they don't even care about those inhibitor turrets as the super minions, the Baron minions are doing their work. Wako on the front line. This Ezreal has absolutely no fear.
Just like that, Alpha Esports, from a great early game, everything is clawed back by Boom. Alpha Esports, they try to go for the risky pick, but they definitely don't have the target selection. Going for Pop there with her Shield of Daybreak up, it just doesn't seem like a winning line, and they get punished quite hard for it. Ruby is able to make the rotation coming in from the bot side, and they just have an easy cleanup there. I understand why Alpha Esports is trying to make that play, but they really need to force better target selection.
Yeah, this is where it does start to seem to fall apart here for Alpha. It's, you know, they had such a great set of plays early, a few mistakes, sure, but they seem to be together in these team fights, making decisions that honestly looked better than what we've seen out of them. But now it's all started to fall apart, and Boom are playing with a lot more confidence. Boom are the ones instigating, and Boom are the ones winning. And it seems the natural order has started to reassert itself, Clement.
Definitely seems to be the case here. I would love to see an Alpha underdog story. I love those, but this game is slipping quickly out of their fingers. 4,000 gold down. Pretty interesting to see Viego actually being the one picking up most of this wave, but he is really fed at this point. And I think for now, Alpha Esports, they just don't have the burst damage to take down all of the targets that they need to. Rocky can clean up the entire team. Alex can pop off and do so. Wako can be that same damage dealer that just, they have way too much firepower, and at most, Alpha Esports gets one target down, and the rest of them will still clean up.
Here comes that counter engage, though. They do look for Pop, and they will delete him while still saving on to their tower just barely. And Alpha do decide not to push the issue. A little hard to try and chase when you're missing 2 inhibitors. So they make the wise call.
Yep, they do have to back out of that one. But again, Boom Esports, I don't think they even need to retreat at this point. They're just going to switch around, and here goes in Ruby.
Yeah, looking for K-Babe again, and there is no wild growth for him. He's going to be okay for just a little while longer. Alpha actually really want to scrap this one out, but the targets are all over the place as they try to find something, anything. Ruby flashing away. There is going to be that wild growth on the K-Babe, and it's not going to matter at all. Xiaotu getting deleted, and the rest of Alpha to follow. 3Z nowhere for him to go, and On's getting popped. That is going to be GG.
Wako free-firing the entire team fight, and Ruby still manages to stay alive through the Kingslayer heal. Alpha Esports, they threw everything in the kitchen sink for that one last kill, but it just doesn't materialize. You can tell that K-Babe really wanted to push those picks. He even went for a 3rd damage item in the Essence Reaver, getting himself extra crit. But it just doesn't pay off. Like, they just got outscaled with a team comp that needed to be ahead from start to finish.
That they did, and boom, a harder earned victory than I think they would have guessed coming into today, but they do keep their hot streak alive for right now. Still signs of life from Alpha Esports, Clement. I think, you know, they can't quite play a full game yet, but they are getting better. And I think it's maybe not quite the same story as we've been talking about with Liab, but there are some improvements from this squad. It is good to see.
I think Xiaotu is shaping up to be a star. It's,
yeah.
You know, Alpha Esports, they do have a lot of stars. In terms of their veterancy, they're actually one of the most veteran teams in the PCS. Both 3Z and On have gone to international stages, but Xiaotu is going to be the new carry of this team. I think a lot of players have to pay more respect to his LeBlanc. You know, you can't let... in this game, let's be honest, I felt like Xiaotu actually outplayed Ruby for the majority of the time.
Yeah.
It was just the fact that Ruby had much stronger teammates and had a much better scaling champion. So even though Alpha Esports still fall in their sort of typical fashion, just overextending and running around without great comms, it's kind of expected when you're playing on different servers.
Yeah,
but they do have highlight moments to look forward to.
I think so for sure, and I think like yeah, individual performance in laning phase that did seem to really tick up a little bit. I think some of the early game moments that were kind of like some big highlight reel ones were, in some cases, given to them. Like Boom definitely made a lot of mistakes at points. That bottom dive, I think Alex got a little too hyphy early on, so I think that was actually like some nice counterplay by Alpha Esports, but it did seem like a lot of the times they were the ones instigating and then bit off a little more than they could chew. For a while, it was really a good jungle mid set of plays, especially with Xiaotu really just kind of pushing and being a threat on the side lanes. But yeah, once he wasn't able to delete anybody, it did seem like there wasn't a whole lot they could do anymore.
Yeah, his build was also rather peculiar. He actually went for a very side lane focused build, going for the extra HP and the Cosmic Drive, just to be able to keep the split pushing enough. And what this really tells me is that, you know, Alpha Esports are asking too much of Xiaotu. He has to win the early mid game, go for the early mid jungle, and later in the mid game he has to take that lead and become a side laner just to keep the pick potential alive. And he even has to itemize for it. And when it comes to the late game, that just means that, you know, he's not going to have the same amount of damage and impact. You could tell, though, he still did 4,000 damage over his opponent in the Ruby Silas there. So big props to him. He did very, very well this game. Unfortunately, the two-man game is not something you can expect to keep alive from the start of the game to the very finish.
Yeah, we can see the moment where it started to go wonky when the gold graph just goes from blue to red. And Boom Esports, I really think they kind of were surprised at what they were facing up against there. On the Alpha side, and it did seem like they tried to make a couple of plays that were a little ill-advised up against this squad. They started to lose out, and there was time where it seemed like Alpha were gonna pick up this first win, but unfortunately for them, it remains elusive, and still some answers to try and find for this squad. But there is plenty of time left in the split.
If I'm Warlock, I'm definitely not happy with this win. If you think about the two main turns in this game, both of them were Alpha Esports overextending on the blue buff. The same play essentially played out twice. So if I'm Boom Esports, I feel kind of lucky that I got out of this scenario. And to be fair, this is sort of what the draft is supposed to do anyway. It's not supposed to win early. It's supposed to rely on enemy mistakes to get you back in the game. And it's a bit lucky that Boom Esports did get that break. Rocky, I think a well-deserved MVP. He does find that beautiful close-off on the blue ramp to allow them to get a 4-time reset on Alex and then snowball that into a Baron. So coming in on the exact right moment where you need it to be does swing the game in Boom Esports' favor.
Yeah, Rocky's been looking pretty comfortable when he gets his hands on this Gwen, and it doesn't seem like it's been contested as much with this Boom team as it has been for a lot of other squads. Of course, Gwen, still a champion that has been rocking a very, very good win rate. A little bit more mixed success when it comes out of the jungle, but what can you do? For sure, good win there. Boom had to earn it, but we will be going to a quick break when we return. More of the PCS, so don't go anywhere.